What's up, everyone? My name is Jacob LeRea. I'll be your lead analysis today for the Phenom Media 2023 NBA Draft. I'm here with Zach, Izzy, and Matt. How are you guys doing today?
Doing great.
Doing
All
good.
right. So, basically, how this is going to work is each one of these guys has their own team, and then they're going to draft for the team. I'm going to explain the prospect, and right after, we're going to talk about the team fit and if we like the pick or not. So, Matt, let's go right to you with the San Antonio Spurs with the first pick in the NBA draft. I think we all know what you're going to choose, but why don't you explain it?
All right, with the first pick in the 2023 NBA draft, the San Antonio Spurs select Victor Wembanyama. It's obvious. I mean, when you have a guy who's considered the best prospect since LeBron, it's hard not to take him number one. So I think that it's the obvious pick here.
No, yeah, I 100% agree with that pick. And I think anyone that doesn't agree with that pick is obviously a crazy person. But if we look at Wembanyama as a player, we see a generational talent that we haven't seen from basically anyone before. I mean, if you look at his frame, he's 7'4", has about an 8-foot wingspan. And what makes him so special and so different is one, his versatility, and two, his fluidity. The guy is able to move like a perimeter guard or a perimeter forward, around, even around the floor. He's a monster in the paint. He can act as a lob threat or as a rim protector. On offense, I see him as a three-level scorer in the NBA. I think his shot needs to get touched up a little bit more, especially working on that from range. But the guy just has all the tools to succeed in the NBA. I mean, he's already dominating the Euros and he's in the finals right now. He had a poor performance today, but I'm not really concerned about that. And one concern a lot of people have about Wembanyama is his frame, and I really don't think it's going to hurt him. We see guys like Evan Mobley who have learned to thrive in the NBA. Of course, I do think Wembanyama needs to add some weight onto him, but so far I think he's going to be thriving as an NBA player just because his fluidity, his NBA perimeter ability. All right, then we're going to swing it over to the second pick with the Charlotte Hornets. Have a little bit of a lot of discourse around this pick. So, what's the selection going to look like, Zach?
With the second pick in the NBA draft, the Charlotte Hornets select Scoot Henderson. Despite reports that Charlotte is looking at Brandon Miller at number two, it's hard to really just let Scoot fall to three. If Victor Wembanyama was not in this draft, Scoot Henderson is the unquestioned number one pick in the draft, and it's really hard to pass up a talent like him.
No, yeah, Zach. I mean, you hit the point. I personally think that he's a much better prospect than Brandon Miller. My thing last year was that I had Paulo Banchero as the best prospect because he was more talented than Jabari Smith Jr. In this case, I think it's the same exact reason. I think Scoot Henderson is a much more talented prospect than Brandon Miller. Although Brandon Miller is amazing, I think Scoot Henderson is a generational type point guard. We look at him and what he's able to do on both sides of the floor and the confidence and tenaciousness he plays with. We don't really see that from a lot of guards. I think his shooting obviously could get better, but he's able to score in so many ways. He's so quick off the dribble. He's an elite first step. He's amazing as a playmaker, and his P&R vision is spectacular. I think on defense, he'll bring, like I said, he's going to be a tenacious defender. He's going to bring a lot of hustle, a lot of heart to that defense. And like you said before, like it may not be the perfect fit in Charlotte with LaMelo Ball, but I see them thriving. You know, we see it in Detroit, even though Cade Cunningham and Jay and Ivy only played 16 games together. In those 16 games, the pairing looked good. I can really envision something similar in Charlotte. All right, let's go on to the third pick. Izzy, you have the Portland Trailblazers, and they're in a very, very interesting situation, especially with the Damian Lillard saga continuing. What do you have Portland doing right now?
Yeah, for sure. With the third pick in the 2023 Phenom NBA draft, the Portland Trailblazers select Brandon Miller, forward out of Alabama. Miller, prototypical size. I mean, he's a two-way guy, great shot creator. He didn't have a great NCAA tournament, and had a lot of off-court issues, but the talent is there. I think if Portland ends up keeping the pick, I think he'll be a great fit alongside Dame because they have Jeremy Grant on the wing as well, but having like that young developmental guy like Brandon Miller who can mold himself into an elite NBA player, that'll be beneficial for their future. And whether it's short term, long term, whatever, he fits their timeline either way. So I think he's NBA ready, and I think that's the pick. That's the way they should go right here.
No, yeah. I mean, when you look at Brandon Miller, like I think you hit a lot of the points when you said, I mean, the two-way potential for that big of a forward is insane. And I do like Scoot Henderson more than him, but I do think that Brandon Miller has more of that two guy kind of upside. The first thing I mean we see with Brandon Miller is that he's probably the best shooter in the class. And for someone that's about 6'8", 6'9", I mean, that's obviously a plus in the NBA. As a playmaker, he really impressed this season. He impressed a lot more than I thought he would. He showed an ability to put the ball on the floor while knowing what passes to make. But there are a lot of issues with Brandon Miller. The first being that he's just a pretty skinny guy. Wembanyama, you can kind of go past it because he's so good at everything else. But for being a two-way player in today's NBA, having strength is extremely important. If not, you're just going to get bullied on defense. And especially with the evolution of athletes in the NBA, it'll definitely be a minus to him. I also think Brandon Miller has to work on his finishing in order to be a true three-level scorer. I mean, you look at the best two-way players in the league: Jason Tatum, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George. All these guys are phenomenal finishers around the basket, and Brandon Miller is going to need to take a step up if he wants to be one of those best two-way guys in the league. But we're going to swing it back to Matt for the Detroit Pistons. Who do you got?
Isn't the
I mean,
Rockets?
the Houston Rockets.
Yeah. With the fourth pick in the 2023 NBA draft, Houston Rockets select Cam Whitmore, forward from Villanova. And with this pick, it's a matter of just the Rockets last season. The game plan was basically chuck up shots and just do nothing really the rest of the game. I mean, obviously, you bring in a new coach like Ime Udoka, that's going to change. And Whitmore's really there kind of just to fill out this lineup on the wings. You have Jalen Green, who you're hoping takes another big step this year. Right now, you have Kevin Porter in at the one spot. You don't know how much that's going to be there, but you drafted Jabari Smith last year. You need a guy who can really just a do-it-all wing, and that's what Cam Whitmore is going to bring to the table.
I mean, yeah, I think Cam Whitmore would definitely go well with this Rockets team, especially this young athletic Rockets team. Cam Whitmore is an insane athlete. I'd probably put him up there with Scoot Henderson and Amen Thompson as the three best athletes in the class. He's shown an amazing ability to get off the floor. He has an insane vertical. He's extremely fast. I mean, he's literally built like a linebacker in my eyes. He's like 6'6", about 235 pounds. And he's, as an offensive player, I mean, he's showed an amazing ability this past season at Nova, even though he was hurt to start. An amazing ability to be a shot creator. He really knows how to use his strength to create separation, and he's really amazing off step backs. I think his build also allows him to be a potential amazing defender in this league. Someone who is very strong, very fast, athletic, and his size. It's a prototypical wing defender in this league. I do think there's a ton of things Whitmore needs to do in order to be an actually like legit NBA player and a potential all-star. And I think that starts with his everything else besides that shot creation and that scoring. Although I think he's going to need to develop more of a handle on the next level. I think his shot also is going to have to be more, has to improve, especially his shot selection. He's also got to just round up his playmaking ability. He really isn't an amazing passer or anything, but I don't see that hurting him, especially as a slasher. But we're going to move on to the 5 pick. Now we're going to the Detroit Pistons. Zach, who do you got?
With the 5th pick, the Detroit Pistons select Jarris Walker out of Houston. Walker is a tough, physical, athletic player. Kind of fits that Detroit mold of tough, working hard, does what you need to do on both sides of the ball. And he plays up despite being smaller than the rest of the guys at his position. He really fits what Detroit's trying to do. They went guard recently with Ivy and Cade Cunningham. Now it's time to go get a guy who can be a big.
No, yeah, Jarris Walker has definitely drawn a lot of attention this NBA draft process. And a big reason for that is just his upside on the defensive end. Last year we saw Jeremy Sohan go to the Spurs in the later half of the top 10. And Sohan was proved to be an amazing pick. I mean, he was a phenomenal defender. And I see a lot of that type of player in Jarris Walker. I see a potential glue guy, although he is a bit undersized for the position. I think he has ability to be one of the true guys that are able to switch 1 through 5. It's a term that's used very loosely, but I really do believe Walker could be one of those guys. I mean, he has 6'7". He has amazing size and amazing strength, but I really like Jarris Walker as a future glue forward. And then let's go over to the next pick, 6th pick in the NBA draft. Who you got, Izzy?
With the sixth pick in the Phenom 2023 NBA draft, the Orlando Magic select Grady Dick out of Kansas. I think this is about fit for Orlando. They need that wing guy that can shoot the ball, and Grady Dick's probably one of the best shooters in this draft, behind Brandon Miller. And Orlando does really need shooting at that spot right now, especially after, because Paolo Banchero was not really that great from three-point land this season. And they don't really have that sniper on the roster. And I think adding a guy like him will unlock this Orlando offense and take them to that next level in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, Grady Dick is personally one of my favorite prospects. I think he's just built to succeed in the NBA. Like you said, Izzy, he's probably the second best shooter in the draft behind Brandon Miller. That already gives him a ridiculously safe floor. But what makes me love Grady Dick so much is just his ability that he is never, never moving when he doesn't have the ball. He's always moving off ball. He's a very mobile player. He's also a very cerebral cutter. He knows the spots on the floor. He can also create for himself. He's shown a handle. And I mean, I think that he's built to succeed as a shooter and off the perimeter. He's a phenomenal feel for the game, makes all the hustle plays, and he's a very competitive guy. I think there are a few things that you could see with Grady and be like, he's not built to be an NBA player. Or first is that he's just not as strong and he's got a skinnier frame that can obviously make him a target on defense. But he's pretty sneaky athletic. And I know that is a term that is kind of used a lot for these white players, these scrappy guys. But I really do think Grady's a sneaky athlete. He's also I think that will help him on the defense side. He also needs to improve as a playmaker. He's got to learn how to be able to handle the ball and just pass it in the right situations. I mean, I said he has a great feel, so I don't really he has a great feel for the game, so I don't really see that as a huge worry, especially if he comes into the league and he's more of an off-ball guy. And in Orlando, they need shooting. I think it's a perfect fit. All right, let's go over to the seventh pick in the draft. Still a lot of great guys on the board. Who you got, Matt?
All right, with the seventh pick in the NBA draft, the Indiana Pacers select Taylor Hendricks, forward from UCF. You described it perfectly. His projected role for the NBA on our spreadsheet here, versatile forward. He does it all. I mean, he shot 40% from three in college this year. On the defensive end, he is a monster. 2 blocks on 1.5 steals. I mean, he's exactly, in my opinion, what the Pacers need. Of course, they've got their guards filled out. They've got Halliburton and they've got Matherin. You never know what they could do with Buddy Hield this season. You have someone who can be that elite 3-point shooter if you really need him to in Taylor Hendricks. If you do trade Buddy Hield, I think this is where Indiana goes.
Yeah, and especially with Jarace Walker off the board for Indiana, I think Taylor Hendricks is 100% the way to go. Indiana definitely has something good brewing with Tyrese Halliburton and all those young guys around him, Ben Matherin, Chris Duarte, Andrew Nemhard. And I think Taylor Hendricks would be a really good and a nice addition to that. They really do lack that versatile forward, like you said. They really need that help. I think he would be amazing next to Miles Turner. If we look at Taylor Hendricks, when he is at 6'7", he can move, he can guard with most players. He also acts as a really good secondary rim protector, which is huge in today's NBA, especially when you need the help to succeed. Uh, and Hendricks, like I said, great shooter. He can shoot the lights out from basically anywhere on the floor. But my concern with Hendricks and the reason why I think Jarace Walker is a bit of a better prospect than him, I think Jarace does a little bit more on ball. Hendricks will come to the league and he'll be an off ball threat. He's not really a ball handler. He's not a great playmaker. And he's not really, I don't think he's the smartest player either. But I do think Taylor Hendricks does have a safe floor just because he's so athletic, such a great defender, and he is such a great shooter. But let's move on to the 8th overall pick. All right, what do you got?
With the 8th overall pick, the Washington Wizards select Anthony Black out of Arkansas. Anthony Black's a big guard, very high upside on defense. Finally, it's time for them to go get a guard. Bradley Beal is can't really do it alone in that backcourt, and defense has seriously been a question for them for years and years and years now. And after years of mediocrity, you kind of have to lock that up, especially as they head into a new chapter in their franchise when they've mixed it up in the front office. It's time to look in a different direction and get your guard of the future.
Yeah, I think Anthony Black would be an amazing fit next to Bradley Beal, especially since he doesn't need the ball in his hands to succeed. This year at Arkansas, he's part of a star trio, freshman trio with Nick Smith Jr. and Jordan Walsh, and he was obviously the best out of the three. One thing that I loved from Anthony Black that he showed this season was just his overall ability to play make. He is one of the best passers in the draft. He makes great decisions when passing the ball. He's also just an amazing defender. He's 6'7". He can act as a combo guard, and we've recently seen that this type of archetype be like a lot of NBA front offices fall in love with it. We see guys like Josh Giddey, Franz Wagner, last year with Dyson Daniels, and now this year with Anthony Black. They love that they're so big and they have the ability to be such good defenders. Not only can Anthony Black guard both guard positions, but he can also switch onto some wings, which is huge. He's a pretty athletic player. He's got a nice bounce to him. I think he projects as a really good NBA defender. I think one thing that he really needs to work on, and it's probably the biggest and only weakness, is his overall shooting. I don't love his mechanics. I think there's a lot to be tweaked there. I also think that he just really isn't going to be a great shooter. He's not efficient, not consistent. Uh, but I don't really think that's a problem in Chicago, especially in Washington, especially when you have guys like Bradley Beal, Corey Kispert, who are good shooters. But let's move on to the 9th overall pick in the NBA draft, the Utah Jazz, in a very interesting position. What do you got?
With the 9th pick, the Utah Jazz select Amin Thompson, overtime elite. I'm surprised that both the Thompson twins are on the board at this point in the draft, but I mean, I guess here we are. Amin Thompson, explosive athlete. I think probably the most explosive player in the draft. Outside of his twin brother. He has an amazing first step, great size, great finisher at the rim. Also has great court vision. I think Utah right now, I mean, who knows what they're going to do with like Jordan Clarkson. Colin Sexton can't really stay healthy. So they do need that lead guard that has like that level of explosiveness. And I think Amin Thompson provides that. And I think this is a great fit for him, and Lauri Markkanen would be one of the better young duos out of the rebuilding team.
I mean, yeah, the fact that Amen Thompson fell all the way to 9, I mean that's amazing for the Jazz. I mean, you really did get a possible franchise cornerstone with Amen Thompson. No knock on Laurie at all. I just don't think he could be a #1 option ever on a championship team. He's also getting into his prime right now, but that's a conversation for another day. Amen Thompson can be a really, really good NBA player. And I'm talking all NBA level. He's an all-worldly athlete, like as he said. He talked about the first step, his vertical. He's extremely fast. He has that insane bounce, which makes him a really slashing threat. He also is just a phenomenal playmaker. He's really dangerous in the half court just because he sees the entire floor and he's so fast. You don't know what he's going to do next. He's a twitchy athlete. Then on defense, I mean, he's just everything you want from a perimeter wing defender. He's long, he's fast. Like I said, he can also act as a secondary rim protector because of that bounce. But the big knock on his game is his shooting. He's an awful shooter. Probably the worst shooter I've anyone picked so far, and probably will be the worst shooter for at least a couple more picks. But it's definitely something that's going to be a problem for him. Teams will leave him open, similar to Ben Simmons. And also, a lot of question is with OTE in the competition. They're playing mostly high school seniors and other international guys who aren't as talented. So people may say that Men hasn't played the guys like other international prospects have, or even the college and G League guys have. But I really don't think it's going to be a huge adjustment for Men, especially since he is such a good athlete. I think he'll be able to keep up with speed. I think he can be a very successful NBA player. But let's move on to the Dallas Mavericks at pick 10. Not a lot of people expected them to be here. What do you got, Matt?
With the 10th pick, the Dallas Mavericks like All-Star Thompson, also from Overtime Elite. Like as he said, he's extremely athletic, and it's all about getting Luka help, because obviously the Mavs should not be in this position right now, and they are. So it doesn't matter what form the help comes in. You get Kyrie Irving back, you get whoever, you use this top draft pick on the best player available, and in my opinion, that's All-Star Thompson. And that helps the Mavs be contenders, hopefully, again next year.
Yeah, so a lot of people confuse Asar and Amen as prospects. I think that they're similar players, but they're different. One reason is I think Amen's more meant to be ball dominant, while Asar is more meant to be an off-ball type wing. I think he's a better cutter than him. And I think they're on very similar athletic levels. I think they're both the two best athletes in the class. And I think that will help Asar so much as an off ball guy. But if he wants to be a true off ball guy, obviously the shooting is going to have to improve. Unlike Amen, he really did make strides as a shooter. And I still think his form is a little bit weird. He shoots a little bit too low, and his guide hand needs a little reworking. But I think that he can, if he improves at his rate, which he has, he projects to be a decent NBA shooter. He has a really good handle for a guy that's his height at like 6'6", 6'7". Uh, and he also projects as a really good defender, similar tools to his brother. And I do think the competition, like I said earlier, it's a problem, but I think it's something because they're so athletic and so talented, it's not going to really make them fall behind. But let's move on to pick 11, and we have the Orlando Magic with their second pick in this lottery. What do you got? What do you have?
With the 11th pick, the Orlando Magic select Kason Wallace out of Kentucky. Kason Wallace, really to me, that kind of stereotypical Kentucky guard, can play either the one or the two. Very good defender, and can immediately slot right into an Orlando team that has a need at guard. They've got a lot of guards, but some of them are on the older side. Wallace is young, but he's going to succeed. He's going to play tough, play hard, and especially with the Grady Dick pick. You kind of need a guy who's going to be a little bit better on the defensive end. So Kason Wallace pick there.
Yeah, Kason Wallace is probably one of my two favorite prospects in the entire draft, aside from Scoot. But I really, really love Kason Wallace. I think he's going to be a really good NBA player. One thing he has an advantage of over these other guys is that he is such a good defender. He has amazing perimeter instincts. He moves his feet extremely well. He gets into passing lanes. He's physical. He puts a lot of pressure. He reads screens well. And I think that if you're already a good defender, you're going to get minutes. And he's also a really good offensive player. He's got a nice handle on the ball. Like you said, he's a fast Kentucky guard. He knows how to score. I said the same thing for men, but he's also a twitchy athlete. I think that Kason Wallace, he has a strength to be a good finisher. I think the shooting, he needs to be a little bit more consistent but he showed a lot of great flashes. I think that's really the biggest knock on his game. I think he also needs to make some better decisions as a playmaker, but so far he has shown flashes of being a really good passer. Kaysen just to me has a really safe floor and a really high ceiling. A lot of people love the Drew Holiday comparison. I see a lot. They're both long, great perimeter defenders and know how to handle and how to run an offense. I think Kaysen's just going to be a stud. Let's move on to pick 12 in the draft. The Oklahoma City Thunder. A lot of teams probably thought they would be higher, but they surpassed expectations. Izzy, what do you have for them?
With the 12th pick, OKC selects Jordan Hawkins, guard, UConn. I think he was the best player on UConn's national championship winning team. I know Adama Sanogo got all the shine, but I think Hawkins was the best player on that team. He's one of the better shooters in the draft as well. Off ball guard, doesn't really need the ball in his hands to score. And I think OKC needs that because especially when you have ball dominant players like Shea and Josh Giddey, I think having like a sniper like that can really space the floor for them. And I think that's what they need in their lineup. And I think Hawkins, would fit like a glove on that team. And you can never go wrong with shooting. So I think adding that would do wonders for OKC.
Yeah, I think a lot of teams are going to be really high in Jordan Hawkins, and for the reason you said, he's a phenomenal shooter and he's just amazing off ball. He's constantly moving on offense. He knows where to go on the floor. He's an amazing catch and shoot threat. He can also do a little pump fake, put the ball on the floor, and pull up for a shot. He's always moving. He's got a lot of hustle. He plays with a lot of he's very just all over the floor. He knows his role on the floor as well. So I think that carries over into him being a very good role player in the NBA. I really don't see a star, but I see him having as a safe floor as a shooter and off ball guy. A lot of his concerns are with him putting the ball on the floor as an actual shot creator. But I really don't think because he's so fit to be a role player, I don't really see that being a problem for him. Another thing with Jordan Hawkins is that he's just not that tall and he's pretty skinny. I think that'll make him probably someone who players hunt on defense. But if Hawkins can just be that spark off the bench, know how to score, be an off-ball guy, I think he'll be fine for his career. Let's move on to Toronto Raptors at pick 13. There's a lot of talk with Toronto and a lot of trade rumors. Who do you have him getting, Matt?
Yeah, like you said, Toronto, you don't know really what they're going to do this offseason, but with the 13th pick, I have them taking Jalen Hood-Schifino. You don't know what's going to happen with Fred VanVleet. Is he going to come back? Is he going to stay? Is he going to go? You don't know if OG Anunoby, they're going to trade him, Pascal Siakam, but you need a good building block for any situation. And I think Jalen Hood-Schifino is exactly what you're getting here. And it's a good piece for the future, especially when you have your wings and Scotty Barnes there. I think you fill out a guard spot, and I think that it's a good piece that Toronto can get.
Yeah, and if you look at the players, Masai Ujiri loves to have long, athletic guys, and Jalen Hood-Schifino is definitely one of those. Because he stands at 6'6", he's really a guy that you can play in both the 1 and the 2. He's extremely long as well with a nice wingspan, so that makes him be possibly a very good defender. I think Jalen Hood-Schifino just has a really good feel for the game especially on the offensive side of the floor. He's an amazing shot creator. He knows how to create space. He's able to get to the rim with ease. He's got a nice mid-range game. I think he needs to expand a little bit from 3, but as a pull-up shooter, he's honestly amazing. He's a top 5 off the dribble shooter, like off the pull-up in the class, and he's also a pretty good playmaker. He's got good instincts. But then overall, I think there's a lot of questions with him. Like I said, he does project as a good defender because of his length and his wingspan and his size. But I do think he needs to be more consistent on the end. He needs to put a little bit more pressure on the on ball. He's also just going to be hunted in the post because he's a little skinnier. But he is a definitely a good pick for this Toronto team, who, because he can start off either as a role player or as a building block. Let's move on to pick 14. The end the lottery, the New Orleans Pelicans. There's had definitely an interesting offseason with Zion Williamson and everything going on off the court, but New Orleans definitely wants to build off this season with him coming back healthy and their whole roster just being healthy. Who do you have them taking?
With the 14th pick, the New Orleans Pelicans select Keontae George out of Baylor. George is, just an instant upgrade on offense. He's going to be an instant microwave off the bench. He's not going to start when, Zion comes back and they've got their full 5 going. But when he comes off the bench, he's going to be a big impact player for a team that could use more scoring off the bench, could use like a Pat back there, strong, gets the basket. Yeah.
Yeah, Keontae George is just one of the natural scorers in this draft, and that's kind of been a draft prospect archetype over the past couple of years, just that scorer. And I think Keontae George is one of the better ones. He came into the season as a projected top 10 pick. He might have fell a little bit, but I still think that scoring talent's there. He's an extremely physical player. He knows how to use his strength to score. I see a lot of that, it might be a little bit crazy, but I do see him a little bit Anthony Edwards-esque as a scorer, and his ability just to put the ball on the floor and score the ball using his size and physicality and create shots. I think he's a really good shooter, even though he isn't the most consistent, but his free throw percentage and 3-point percentage indicate him being a good shooter in the NBA. I do think that him being 6'4" will kind of limit him as a versatile player. I think that he will be a physical defender in the NBA. I just don't know if he's going to be able to keep up with the fast and twitchy athletes in the NBA. So I think that's definitely going to be a problem for him. But offensively, I think the guy just has the tools to be a great off the bench scorer. He can dribble, he's strong, and he's just a scorer. I mean, you see guys like Cam Thomas and Jordan Poole, even though they're not the most consistent guys, they can give you a bucket at any time, and no one's gonna hate having that on their team. So that's gonna round up the lottery.